Joining us now to preview the events on Wednesday is Representative Russ Fulcher, the congressman serving the 1st District of Idaho, who's going to voice his objections to the Electoral College vote on Wednesday. So, Congressman, we know that a lot of people are looking at this because really it's the first time that they'll hear these arguments being made. A lot of them haven't been covered by the media. A lot of them have been taken up in the courts, for example. What is the case that you're going to be making in front of Congress tomorrow?
Well, there's a lot of speculation on some of the events that surrounded this election, but there are also some things we know for absolute certain. And one of those things is there are several states that broke their own law. They simply broke their own election laws. Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution expressly gives the state legislatures of the state the ability to set their election laws. But certainly in the case in Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, which I know are three of the states that will be challenged tomorrow, either a court or a Secretary of State or someone other than the state legislature within that body changed the law. They allowed mass ballots or they changed the dates. And that in and of itself is a fact, number one. And number two, it puts a result suspect.
So as far as tomorrow goes, then, what are you looking to get out of this? Because I know that some lawmakers will say that it's an up and down vote in the House and the Senate. Nancy Pelosi controls the House, for example. But I know that a lot of people who are following through on this move are saying that they want an election commission. They want perhaps to pressure the president to appoint a special counsel to look into election fraud, things of that nature. What are you hoping that you get out of tomorrow?
Look, we've got a real problem in this country. And that problem is that a significant number of Republicans and Democrats question the outcome of this election. And when I say a large percentage, it's a large percentage. That's a huge problem. And so part of the purpose tomorrow is to drive this thing to the point where we investigate and we understand what really took place. People don't believe that their vote necessarily counts anymore. Part of the reason for this process tomorrow is to let America know that Congress is paying attention. Congress is trying to act to get the bottom of these things, that we cannot stand for some of these situations where the laws are broken and the election laws are not adhered to. And so that's a big part of the end game for me tomorrow, is to make sure that we investigate, drive this stuff to ground, and do not let it happen again.
And it's an important point because back in 2016, for example, Democrats are the ones who do not have faith in the system. And a lot of those in the media will say that this is an unprecedented thing that you and your colleagues are doing, but it's not. In fact, back in 2005, Democrats did the very same thing, citing the fact that they did not have faith in the elections. They said that there was suppression, that perhaps that the machines themselves were not accurate, things of that nature as well. So do you think that this is something that splits across partisan lines, but because of the way that it's been portrayed in the media and by your Democratic colleagues, that it does look more adversarial than it actually is?
Well, it will be adversarial, but I don't want to hear from my Democrat colleagues that this is something unprecedented. Every Republican president since the year 2000 has been objected to in this same fashion by the Democrats. What might be different is to the scope, the level of the opposition here. You're probably going to see more than 100 members of the U.S. House that have an objection on this. And you'll certainly see a significant number of senators. I think it was 2005 when Barbara Boxer was the only senator. There's going to be multiple senators on this. And so, but I don't want to hear from my Democrat friends that this is unprecedented. They know exactly how this works. They've been doing it at least since 2000 with every Republican president.
No, and I think you bring up a good point, too. I mean, I think people have to think about what it would be like if the shoe was on the other foot, because a lot of people would argue that what was done with Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation was a way to essentially do the same thing, to create a cloud over the president's victory and say that it wasn't legitimate and anything like that. And, of course, we did get a special counsel, something that a lot of people are calling for to investigate voting irregularities. But when it comes to your Republican colleagues who may not necessarily be on board, I predict that some of the arguments will be that it sets up a bad precedent, something like that. What's your comments for them?
You know, here's the deal, and you're exactly right. Some of my friends on the Republican side don't think that Congress has any role whatsoever in this. And I am a huge states' rights person. I used to be a state senator. I do not want to usurp any state rights, and that is not the intent of this whatsoever. And but Congress does have oversight as provided in the process given in the 12th Amendment. We are simply exercising that. This is not in any way, shape, or form a move to restructure the right of the states to set the election laws. Rather, it is a check and balance. It's an oversight role. That is a responsibility that we have. That is my message to my colleagues on the Republican side who don't see it that way.
And once again, I think it's worth mentioning the point that this isn't an unprecedented thing. They like to say that maybe this is deteriorating norms or anything like that, but I think it's worth noting that it wasn't too long ago, for example, when Justice Amy Coney Barrett was put on the Supreme Court, that that your Democratic colleagues were saying things such as packing the Supreme Court, adding different senators. I mean, when we're talking about changing norms, I think that we just have to look back a couple months ago to see that the other side is not that hesitant to change norms as well. So coming out of January 6th, then moving ahead to the 2022 election, for example, or even the 2024 presidential election, what can Republicans do to get to the bottom of these allegations and make sure that future elections are indeed fair?
First and foremost is to take this particular election and the results thereof to a conclusion that we can all believe. There may be, and a strong possibility, months to come, there will be much more information that comes out that's proven on election fraud. But as for tomorrow, we need to stand on the facts. The facts are that there are a number of states that broke their own law, and they changed the rules, they did not go through the process, and that in and of itself warrants questioning those electoral votes. So the best thing we can do is to take this election, run it to ground, and get to the bottom of the concerns on this one. In the meantime, it's all about accountability. By taking the steps that we hope to take tomorrow, we are sending a message to each state, we are sending a message to each other, that we are watching this stuff, that it's serious. This is an incredible part of our republic. We've got to stand up for that, hold people accountable, not take over states' rights, but hold them accountable.
And I think that you touched on something very important during this interview. It's the idea that there are prima facie arguments, for example, on their face that some states did not follow the law as it's written on the books. But when it comes to other evidence as well, I mean, we have to understand that they're looking into evidence of fraud in multiple states, thousands of votes. That's something that does take some time inherently. So when people are saying that there's no evidence right now, I understand those frustrations, but this isn't going to be an expansive investigation that we may not know the answers to for months, if not years. But Congressman Russ Fulcher, I really appreciate you coming on the program tonight and previewing what we may see tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.